I'm just going to send these people a quick link here. Oops. Okay, here we go. All right. So now officially we are on camera and we're live. Good morning to all of you. Thank you for being here. And if you're out there on the internet, also thank you for being here as well. Hey, one more. Come on in. Come on in. So this is Social Justice 12. This is going to be a little different. I usually do Social Justice 12 at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then I do another class after that. So now it's switched this term, so it's going to be weird for me. This is Social Justice 12. Welcome to all of you. It's very nice to have all of you here. We have a few people. Online here joining us, and so I think YQ. Good morning. Good morning to you. Gabrielle's here again. Good morning again, Gabrielle. And someone else who I can't read their name because of the script, but maybe you can let me know who you are. Good morning. So this will be Social Justice 12. So for the next 13 weeks, we will, oh, and Daniel's here too. Good morning, Daniel. For the next 13 weeks, we'll be exploring social inequality, inequalities within societies, how they're created, how they work, how they advantage and disadvantage different people, and maybe some of the things that we can do to alleviate that inequality. So how we can work to fix that. If you're paying any attention to the news whatsoever, you'll know that this is a huge topic in sort of popular media at the moment, right? We have we had the death of George Floyd a couple months ago. We have all kinds of protests centering around race and racism in the United States and in other places too. We have the Black Lives Matter movement. We have religious persecution going on in numerous places in the world. We have issues of gender inequality coming up. All of this stuff is kind of boiling over, at least in the North American news anyway. And so the stuff we'll talk about in here is kind of very applicable to what's going on. Hopefully, as we kind of go forward in this class, you'll feel comfortable kind of sharing your opinions and views and questions. Oh, that's Canon. Okay, good morning. Yeah, hopefully you'll feel comfortable sort of sharing your questions and views on things. We'll talk a little bit about how we want to engage with some of this stuff because, again, if you've been paying any attention to the news over the last little while, you'll know that, people have a lot of strong emotions around things like sexism and racism and religion and things like that. So it can be a little bit intimidating to talk about, but hopefully we'll feel comfortable enough to do so. But it's a really interesting class, and I think it's useful in a way that not many classes are. I think it's very tuned into what's happening at the moment, and so hopefully we'll be able to learn something and sort of share our own perspectives on some of the things we talk about. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, let me just see if this is going to work here. Right, and so you can't see that. Shoot. how am I going to do this? But if I put it over there, that means that sorry, just technical difficulties here. Okay, hang on. I'm going to have to work on this for tomorrow. There you go. So if you're online, you'll see kind of a couple of slides on the screen at once. I know that's a little weird. I'll look into that for tomorrow. Yeah, so the syllabus, by the way, is on Student Portal under under course documents. And so everything for this class will be posted there. So I'll post all of my lecture slides, any articles we read, questions I might give you, everything will be posted there so you don't have to worry about missing anything. And of course, everything we do in here will be recorded and put on YouTube. So nothing is, so you can just sleep through class and then watch it later. No, don't do that. Everything will be posted there. This will be posted there as well. The syllabus is already there. So I didn't print out any for you, but the syllabus is in course documents already. But I'll walk you through it, and you can read over the real version a little bit later if you like, okay? So this is what social justice is here. It's kind of asking us what kind of a world, what kind of a society do we want to live in? And so every society around the world has some degree of inequality, right? So some people have more power, some people have more status or prestige, some people have more opportunity or more advantage than others. And so the question is that are we okay with that? Are we okay with some people having more access to resources and opportunities than others? And if we're not, how can we kind of identify why things are the way they are? Why are things unequal? And again, how can we fix it, right? And so we'll be talking about how society is stratified. And so I'll talk about that term a little bit more, but stratified basically means something has layers, right? So most societies are stratified. They're divided into layers. Some people have more and some people have less. And in not all societies, but in most, the way that people are stratified has to do with sometimes race, definitely with class, according to gender, according to sexuality, according to religion, and according to ability. So we'll talk about, we'll have a chance to talk about all of those things. We'll pull them apart and kind of see how they work, and again, what we can do to change them, right? So some of the words here you may have seen come up in reading that you've done or in the news or in videos and things like that. We'll talk about prejudice, we'll talk about discrimination, we'll talk about stereotypes and oppression and power and privilege. We'll talk about all of these concepts and how they kind of operate within a society. And some of these concepts are a little bit more tricky to get your head around than you might think. One that's come up in the news recently is the idea of privilege. And a lot of people don't quite understand what it is. And so sometimes they have a very strong reaction to it because they don't quite understand it. But by the end of this course, you will understand all of these things and kind of be able to talk about them in an intelligent and articulate fashion. I guess this is the case for all classes, but there's no textbook for this class. And so everything that we do in this class will either be articles that I give you, or it'll be lecture slides that I have on the board. I have a bunch of videos that I'll be able to show you and we'll be able to talk about. And so, so there's no textbook. I do have this Introduction to Sociology, which I have in PDF. I probably won't use it. Last term, I decided I would try to use it, and then we wound up using it, I think, in one in one instance. So I don't think we'll use it. I probably won't post it, and we'll just go with the stuff that I have already. So really no textbook. I will provide you with everything that you need, okay? Yeah, and again, everything will be posted on Student Portal, so you won't have to worry about missing out on anything, okay? There are a number of learning outcomes, and I won't belabor them by kind of going through each one in detail, but really what these have to do, the courses in the BC curriculum are currently designed to develop certain skills. So there is some knowledge that we'll need to have. There are some things that we'll have to remember, but really what we're trying to do is learn how to think and how to deal with information and how to kind of pull it apart and understand it and put it back together in a way that makes sense to us and in a way that we can sort of communicate to others. And so most of these learning outcomes have to do with just that. Yeah, most of these learning outcomes have to do with just that. So we'll be trying to ask some good questions in this course. Discovering new things is really about asking the right questions. And so we'll try to learn how to ask some questions in here. We'll try to learn how to do a little bit of research and find information. We'll try to learn how to evaluate information in terms of whether it's reliable or whether it's not. Again, in my class earlier today, I said that, all the knowledge in the world is accessible through this thing, right? But of course, as you're probably aware, not all of that information is necessarily accurate or factual, right? Some of it is outright false or outright lies, Donald Trump, right? And so we have to, more than ever before, we have to have the ability and the skills to sift through information and figure out what we should believe and what we should not, right? And so I'll try to give you some of the tools to help you with that as well. There's some of these other learning outcomes here, number 2, 3, and 4. We'll talk about significance, how to judge the significance of things, how to evaluate importance, how to evaluate evidence. So how to find evidence for an argument, how to evaluate other people's evidence and see if it's useful or good or not. This is a continuity and change skill, which is basically as simple as it sounds. Some things change, some things stay the same. Can you identify those? Yes, you can. Whoops, sorry. And causes and consequences. Of course, we all know that certain things have sort of short-term and long-term effects, of course. That's easy enough to put together. We'll try to take some different perspectives, and this one is a little bit tricky as well, but it's an important one for this course because what we need to do, and we'll talk about this a little bit tomorrow and Friday, what we'll need to do is we'll need to be able to try to see things from other people's perspective. It's very easy to sometimes believe that the way that we perceive the world, the way that we see the world, is the way it is. But that's not entirely true. Of course, there is an absolute reality, right? Things are only one way. But we're all kind of looking at it from a different perspective, right? And so I'll talk about this more a little bit later, but even in this room, think about where you're sitting, right? Each of us has a slightly different perspective on what's happening in this room, right? So what you can see from where you sit is entirely different from what I see from where I sit, right? And that's just a metaphorical version, right? Yes, physically we see things differently in a room, but we also see things differently depending on where we are in society. And so things like our race or our ethnicity, our religion, our gender, our sexuality, all of those things kind of put us in a different place within society. And so we're going to understand and sort of experience that society a little bit differently depending on depending on who we actually are. And we'll get into that in another day or so. But perspective is an important outcome for this course. And ethical judgment is another one. And so this can be a tricky one for social justice as well, because sometimes it is very easy to identify where things are wrong or where things are right, but sometimes it's more difficult to figure out what an appropriate solution is. And I think one of the things that we see happening in media today when people are talking about sexism or racism is that people are really struggling with how to make an ethical judgment about things and how certain things should be fixed, how things should be remedied. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But there's lots to talk about in this class. And honestly, I always run out of time in this class. There's always more that I want to do, but I always run out of time towards the end because there's just so much good stuff. But we'll get to that. In this class as well, there's a few core competencies. These are kind of more broad skills that connect to, I guess, our development as people and our development as learners. And so one of them has to do with communication in terms of verbal communication, written communication. How do we sort of take in information and understand it, and how do we communicate it to other people? Okay, and that may sound a little bit vague and may sound like a bit of a generalization. Don't worry about it too much now. We'll get to it as the course goes on. Thinking, I'll probably lean on this a little bit more heavily. Some of you, if you've been in my classes before, 2 of you have, you'll know that there's a critical thinking component that we'll walk through. And critical thinking is something that I'm sure we've all heard of, probably, right? But a lot of people don't do it very well. And so I'm hoping that I'll be able to give you at least the kind of basic tools to think critically about things. And the good news is that, we all kind of do it already to some degree. We just don't really pay attention to when and how we do it. And if you pay a little more attention to how you think, you can think better. And again, this is an important skill going forward. This is an important skill that I think all of you will need and will use in your lives. You need to be able to think critically, especially living in the world that we live in. And then finally, the personal and social one. This has to do with our kind of identity and development as individuals and as members of a community and as members of kind of a global world. And this one, this competency has a lot to do with what we do in this class as well, right? Because social inequality is all about how we interact with our community, right? And how we sort of, what's the word I'm looking for here? How we understand our role in the community and how we build stronger communities, I guess we could say. But don't worry too much about those. We'll deal with those as we go forward. The part that everybody is kind of probably curious about, when we went online last term, I stopped giving exams. And one of the reasons I stopped is that it was really impossible to tell if people were getting a little more help on their exams than maybe they should have. And it wouldn't be fair, right? It wouldn't be fair to other students if I couldn't make sure that other students weren't cheating. And so I kind of switched gears and I went with all written assignments for the class. And that way, I think it was a little more fair. It was a lot more work for me. I think it might have been a little more work for students. It was a lot more work for me marking, but I think it was better. It allowed me to see what students were learning and what students were understanding. But I think it's also better for you. I think it's better. I think you gain a better understanding if you have to write something down, if you have to show what you know in written form. So there's basically 3 papers in this class. Two of them, I should have put 2 up there by micro papers. 2 of them are what I call micro papers, and they're kind of like a research paper, but they're just really little. Okay, and so they're like a page and a half maybe. And my philosophy on these is that if you can write a really good short paper, you can probably write a really good long one. It's just more of the same. And so I'll try to give you a little bit more idea of how those go together as we move on. But there's two little papers, and then there's one bigger one toward the end. And so the bigger one, the final paper, takes the place of a final exam. So it's a little more serious, but I'm hoping by then you'll be comfortable and ready to write that. Attendance, there's 10%. So I'll keep track of who attends either here or online. And so I should mention for all of you that are here, although I mentioned it before we started, there's no penalty for not actually coming into class, okay? So if somebody doesn't feel well, like if you know, again, if somebody wakes up tomorrow and you feel like you might be a little bit sick, don't come in here, do the online class until you feel better, okay? So there's no penalty for not showing up. We don't want people to come in to school if they're sick, okay? Even if it's just a little cold or the sniffles or whatever, don't come in. But do attend either online or here. And so, yeah, I'll leave that there. There'll be some reflective activities. So sometimes I'll ask you a question to kind of think about, right? So what are your feelings on this? Or how does the thing that we talked about in class today relate to your personal experience? And so I'll ask you to write just like a little paragraph, maybe 5, 6, 7 sentences. It'll be very, very simple. Sometimes I'll ask you to do those as well. We'll have some quizzes. If you're in class here, I'll have you write them out because it's a little easier and quicker. If you're online, then I'll do an oral quiz with you. So we'll do a video call and I'll just kind of ask you questions. Either way, we'll be able to cover that. Yeah, and then the final paper. Yeah, so that's what we'll do. I'm going to pause for a second there and just ask anyone who's here or anyone who's online, do you have any questions for me right now? If you're online, you can use the live chat in YouTube and you can ask me a question and I can see it pop up and I can answer you. But yes, sir. No, as long as you're either here or you're in the online class, it's good. Yeah. Okay, well that's his thing. as long as you're somewhere, right? I definitely want you to be here. I think it's going to go. Sorry, what am I trying to say? It's my first time in front of a group in a long time. I think it's better if we're here. But again, if you're not feeling well, definitely stay home. Be part of the online class, and then that's good enough for me. As long as you're connected somehow, that's fine. Yeah, because we don't want people coming in. We don't want people coming in if they're sick, and that's going to apply to me too. And so if I wake up, on Monday morning and I have a sore throat or something, then I'm going to stay home and I'm going to send you all an email and say, okay, I'm going to be doing the online class, until I feel better. And that could happen too. So again, we have to be kind of comfortable with the fact that people may move in and out of class depending on how well they feel, right? And of course, in a normal school term, I think we can all agree that people get sick, right? Who of you has had a cold during the school year? In any school year? Did you get a cold? You all did, right? Everybody gets sick at some point. So, again, people are probably going to go home for a couple days and then come back. But this way you'll be able to, it'll be seamless, right? So again, if Aliana wakes up Monday morning and she's not well, She's going to stay home for a couple days, but she'll be able to do the online class. And then when she feels better, she'll be able to come back in and she won't have missed a thing. Okay, that's the idea of what we're doing here. So there's nobody will miss anything in theory. Okay. Okay. Sorry, you had a question? Which? Oh yeah, I'll give you a little bit of time in here. Most of it will be done at home. But I usually give people, maybe 2 classes at least, just to, you can work on it in here and you can ask me questions because I'll be right here, or I can look at things with you. So I do give a little bit of class time, but you do that at home. It's 10 to 25? Wow. It won't be anywhere near that long. I promise. Yeah, I've got, how many? Well, actually, usually I have about between 50 and 60 students. And so I don't know, I'm not that good at math. Multiply 60 students by 25. That's a lot of pages for me to read at the end of the term, right? So I usually go with something a little bit shorter, a lot shorter actually. Yeah, no, thank you. Other questions before we move on? Other questions? Okay, you can always ask me anytime. Again, I have an attendance slide here. This is wrong. This is normally the way it would be. But for now, again, if you're sick, stay home, do the online class. Don't come in here and infect people, even if it's just a cold, even if it's just a regular cold. Don't come in here and infect other people. Just stay home and do the online class until you feel better. Okay, that's what we're going to have to do to just keep everybody safe and to keep everybody stress-free. Because if people start, getting sick, even if it's just a regular cold, if people start getting sick and they start coming in here, everybody else is going to feel nervous. They're going to be like, oh gosh, is it COVID? And then everybody's going to be stressed and it's going to be a chaotic disaster. Okay, so we've all got to act responsibly and take care of ourselves, but also take care of other people. But it'll be okay, I think. So yeah, this is now wrong for me. You still have to keep up with the class, but again, if you're sick, you can always follow along from home and it should be just fine, okay? At least that's my plan with my fingers crossed. This came up a little bit more last term than it normally does, normally because I do more testing. And so obviously cheating is wrong, right? So don't, we're all very familiar with cheating where, you're writing an exam and you kind of lean over and look at the person beside you. Don't do that, that's bad, right? But plagiarism is much more easy to commit because often in a course like this where we're working with sources outside of our own, where we're using other people's information and ideas, it's easy to kind of not know how to use that information properly. And so lots and lots of students kind of commit, the sin of plagiarism, but it's by accident, right? Because we don't know how to use it. And so I'm going to do my best to sort of give you some tools to show you how to use the ideas of other people without plagiarizing. And using the ideas of other people is something that we do all the time. If you look at any academic paper and you see those little sites, those little sources in the text, those are other people's ideas. Academics do it all the time. We do it all the time as well. We just have to learn how to do it properly. That's all. And it's not too difficult in principle. It can be a little difficult if you're not familiar with the area of study that you're in, which of course is probably all of you. But we'll work through it, and I'll do my best to kind of make that process clear to you so that you don't do it by accident. If you do it on purpose, I'm gonna nail you for it. But but if you do it by accident, I'm gonna try to help you a little bit there. Okay. Classroom code of conduct, I'll let you read that in the syllabus. You're all fine, lovely, well-behaved people. It's no big deal. Email. So you all have a college, You all have a college email account. So please check it from time to time. You can get the little Outlook app and put it on your phone, which is handy. Same thing with Microsoft Teams. And so I'm going to use YouTube and I'm going to use Microsoft Teams to communicate with everyone. And so you probably all got my email, not yesterday, but the day before. So make sure that you can download Teams from the Columbia College website. You can download the Teams app for your phone if you like to. And that can be a way that we can communicate with each other too. And so I used YouTube and Teams last term. And I think Aliana and Adalbert, it worked out okay, right? That's more or less, yeah. And so I think I'll continue to do that this way, but that's a way that we can kind of all keep in contact with each other, okay? But always check your Columbia College email. I'll email stuff to you, but also, Sarah and Deborah and Nav, and there'll be important information in there. Safety, normally we have these drills during the school year. I don't know. I don't know if we're going to do them during COVID. I think we're supposed to, and so we'll find out a way to do them. But usually I mention that. But I think maybe in terms of safety, what we'll mention here is that let's do what we can to keep each other healthy. So I'll encourage you to wear a mask whenever it's not totally inconvenient for you. Obviously, we can't make you wear them, but if you feel comfortable wearing them, then please do, because I think it helps keep people safe. It's a little difficult for me to talk through it all the time, but as soon as I'm done talking to you, it's going back on. You wash your hands as much as you can. Use the sanitizer as much as you can. And keep some distance between people if you can as well. This room is a little more crowded than I think I would have liked, but I guess we'll work with it. Again, I'll keep the door open and the vents will be going, so hopefully that will be okay. But yeah, do what you can to minimize any transmission of illness. The healthier we all are, the safer and happier we'll be, and the easier our term will go. Okay, questions at the moment, either online or here live in our studio. Okay, so for people who are online, I'm probably going to sign off now. That was all I wanted to do today. I just wanted to walk you through kind of what the course was going to be like. The syllabus is posted on Student Portal under Course Documents, and I'll put it in Microsoft Teams as well under Files, so you'll be able to read it. Tomorrow we'll actually start the class for real, but this is just kind of a test run to whoops, hang on. There we go. This is just a test run. There, that's what I wanted to do. There. This is just a test run to make sure that everything works and people were here. So if you have any questions for online people, you can Microsoft Teams message me, or you can send me an email and I'll help you out. But until then, that's all for today. Tomorrow at 10:05 Pacific time, we'll start the course for real. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow. So